Hello and welcome to this video on the personal orientations of the subject specialist teacher research project with me, Kate Hazelbrook. First of all, you might be wondering what led me to invite you to do this project. So for my PhD, I am exploring what it means to be a subject specialist in a further education setting. And as you know, as part of the programme last year, you started to explore that with me. And it was the first time I taught the module, and it made me think about what elements make a teacher a subject specialist, particularly in the further education sector. And how do you take that knowledge that you've gained on the programme and then apply it, and how does it develop when you're on your when you get your job and you go out into the real world of teaching. So that then led me to think about what are the primary sources that influence the orientation of the subject specialist. So when I say the orientation, I mean like the motivations. So, and by primary sources, I mean I'll share that with you in a minute, but things that influence you as a teacher. So when on programme we discussed your where you gained your subject specialist knowledge from, or what experiences you've had, or what teaching you've observed yourself. But now that you've gone into the real world of teaching, there are other elements that will start to influence your orientation or motivations as a subject specialist teacher, and we'd like to know what they might be. So as you gain these different influences, your understanding of the role of the subject specialist teacher and within practice will start to evolve, and we thought about how we could gather that. So the approach that we've decided to take is to gain lived experience, or snapshots of lived experience, from graduates from the post-14 programme. You've got a similar starting point, and then you've gone off into all your different providers, and we'd like to see if there are any similarities or any differences in how that practice evolves as a subject specialist teacher. So the next thing I started to consider was how we can make this manageable, because I remember my first year of teaching. I told you stories about it. I know that your head's going to be spinning in a lot of ways. So I didn't want it to be anything that was too much work, really, that would actually put you off doing it. So I had this idea. Bing. So excuse me. I identified this method, I suppose it would be called, so where you can complete a postcard, because completing postcards, it means that you're not really agonising over every single word as you would if you were typing, but hopefully you can just jot some stuff down and give me the context around what you're doing or what you're thinking at the time. So there are two elements to this postcard that I'm going to ask you to look at, and at this point of the project I'm just giving you that introduction and telling you what the requirements are. And in February, I'm going to ask you to but meet me on Teams to have a little bit of a discussion about how that project's going for you, and how the recording's going for you, and any things that any questions you've come up with, that kind of stuff. And then in July, we can think about whether or not you'd like to write more of a longer kind of article or reflection. That's not compulsory at all. You can just do the postcard activity for me, and that'll give me loads of knowledge and loads of data to look at. But if you'd like to think about writing at the end, then that's something we can talk about in July once the academic year's finished and you're going into that summer break. So first of all, on each of these cards, so you'll be given a pack of these cards, probably about 10 each initially. And what I want you to think about is the influences on you at that moment. So when I'm talking about the influences, I mean things that are changing your practice, or like day to day, or like your overall implementation of your practice. So there are two elements that I've asked you to think about here. So direct influences on the developing person, that being you. You see a little star next to you, which you are the subject specialist teacher. So direct influences are things that are kind of more immediate on your practice. So family, friends, colleagues, your education provider, that could be where you work, or when you're at university at Derby, or if you go on to do further courses, learners, and belief systems. So those values that motivate you every day to make the decisions that you make. So that's what I mean by direct influences. They're the things that have an effect in like immediate effect. So then the other thing I've asked you to think about is wider influences, which have less of an immediate effect, but they do affect practice. So things like institutional culture. So since you started your new roles in September-ish, you'll have started to understand the culture of the place that you work at, and they might have influenced your motivations or your practices through policy or through expectation. Maybe you've had an Ofsted inspection, that kind of thing. So also bodies of knowledge. So anything that you're reading, or well, yeah, basically that, anything you're reading, or with regards to the theory, that could be from our programme or stuff from professional development that you've been on, or things like that. Any policy that has become evident to you or has been introduced by the government, and then things like media as well. So things that are in the media that may or may not have influenced your practice as a subject specialist teacher. So when I say as a subject specialist teacher, I mean a teacher of A-level English or a teacher of film and TV. Those of you who have trained as in a particular subject and then shifted your subject because you're doing more of a support role, you become a specialist in that. So you might be a subject specialist pastoral care, providing subject specialist pastoral care, or providing digital learning guidance. So that becomes your subject specialism. So that's absolutely fine. So then on the other side of the card, I'm asking you to, just like I say, write me a postcard. So a little bit of a reflection on the influences you might have talked about on the other side might be helpful to you. So you give yourself a prompt. Here's some example ones. You might just literally identify an influence that you've pointed out on the front of the card and explore that and explain that. Or you might pick one of these or think of another one. So it's worth having a look at these, and that might, each time that you sit down to do your card, thinking about which one you could write about, or even looking at them beforehand so that you can then plan to what you're going to write on your postcard. And when I say it's a postcard response, it is literally, I want you to sit down and handwrite it and just scribble it down, and then hopefully it'll only take you a few minutes. I don't want you to agonise over it. I want it to be sort of prompt and easy to access during this first year of your teaching. I'm asking you to do it once every about 3 weeks. The first one, if you can do it and consider how the year's gone so far, so that we are like 2 months in, which means it's 8 weeks, but probably giving you some time to actually get some stuff that you can think about and have some headspace to actually think about these influences that might be affecting your practice and impacting your teaching and learning approaches and things like that, your values, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so if you can do one now and then do another one in a few weeks, maybe just before Christmas. So then what I'd like you to do, so you don't have to send me the postcards because we don't want to rely on the old Royal Mail. Store them somewhere electronically. So have your postcard, take a picture of it, front and back side, and then stick it on maybe a Teams document or something on Google Drive, Dropbox. You could create a Padlet or a Wakelet or whatever you want to use, just so that you've got an electronic copy of it, and that belongs to you. And I'll ask you if you're willing to share it with me in February, but we need to make sure that it's password protected so that it's private. It's private for you for GDPR and for data protection and all that jazz. So choose a way to record it. And if you want to write more, so if you get your postcard and you take a photo of it and you put it on your record, and you want to write more, that's absolutely fine. But that's absolutely not a requirement. What I'd like is that postcard once every 3 weeks filled in. So in February, probably January, I'll give you a nudge and say that it'd be great to catch up in February, sort of end of February time, because then you've had time to write about 4 postcards, and then we can discuss like the progress that's made and make sure that you're clear on what you need to do. And if you've noticed anything, that'd be really interesting to hear about it. And then finally, like I say, if you fancy writing about it in more detail, I'll support you with that in July. But that is absolutely optional. You must remember this. So that is the end of this presentation. It's very quick so that you can just reference it and watch it and know what you need to do. If you've got any questions, just drop me a message. Thanks again.